It is 5:30 on Tuesday, June 21st, and I'd like to call this work session to order. First on our agenda is city updates from the mayor's office. So Ms. Solano, please take it away.
Thank you, Madam Chair, City Council, and Mayor Gradisar. There are no city updates this evening as there is a full Arpa update later on the agenda. With such a lengthy agenda, I'll just move on to the first agenda unless you have questions or directions for reports you'd like to hear from me. Actually, let me correct all of that. Let me start over. On your updated work sessions, because round 2 ARPA has arrived, there are 6 recommendations that we'll get back to again this evening, but the agendas have been modified. So next week's City Council work session actually now does include those presentations so we can move those ordinances through. So I thought I'd share that up front instead of later in the evening while your agendas are forward. And I understand that Mayor's office did run that past the chair today and that you were in agreement.
Thank you, Ms. Solano, for that update. Any questions from comment? Councilor Winter.
Okay, so I sent you an email related to COVID. When somebody has COVID, what is the policy and procedures? And of course, that was kind of a rhetorical question. So I guess I sent you another email saying that was a rhetorical question. And I want to know why or how the ball was dropped when we were potentially exposed to COVID. I mean, we're concerned enough about security anyway, and now we have to worry about that. So can you tell me why that ball was dropped here?
I responded with the email of what I know about with respect to notifying staff.
Right. That wasn't my question, though.
I know it was, and that's what you, I think, clarified when I opened up your email today. And instead, it was a city council member with a positive COVID. And I'd have to yield to the mayor and or to our city attorney for communication to you.
Okay.
I know that Councilor Martinez contacted various members of City Council, and my understanding is you were notified by a member of City Council that she had COVID.
I just happened to call her about something else. So, but it just seems like there should have been. If I hadn't called her, I wouldn't have known. Come on, Nick, you're the one that closed everything down and had a mask mandate in here until February, and here we had somebody with COVID. And I mean, I'm concerned about my health, but mostly about my loved one's health, more so than mine, that my loved ones might get sick and die. That's more painful than me dying. So, I'm just wondering why there wasn't a phone call or a text message, or were other staff members that were here notified? Were citizens that were here notified? Were there people that gave presentations? I mean, were they notified? There was no official notice, and that's my question.
You were notified personally.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. Well,
oh my God.
I was told
That's not an answer.
Well, I think we spent as much time on this as we're going to. You send what you call rhetorical questions out. It takes staff time to investigate that. When you had first,
it was an email that she forwarded to me. That's not, it's a rhetorical question. When I said, do we have policies and procedures? That's a rhetorical question. Of course we have policies and procedures. I want to know why those policies and procedures, or why we weren't officially notified. I think we just
notified personally.
In an effort to maintain the agenda, I would propose, or I'd like to have this resolved at a later date just for the agenda, and out of respect for our guests here who are going to propose or to present later.
So you want to talk about it at the end?
If we need to talk about it at the end, Mayor, I mean.
I don't think there's anything to talk about, but you certainly can talk amongst yourself as much as you like.
Councilor Atencio sat right next to the council member that had COVID and then hopped on a plane to Vegas the next day. I don't think he was notified.
You don't think he was, or he wasn't? You have no idea. You're just saying that.
I notified him.
You have no idea. You just say stuff.
Well, I think proper protocol would have been an email. That way we wouldn't even be having this discussion. I mean, they still do have guidelines on the Pueblo County Health Department on when you're exposed and how to handle that to prevent the spread of COVID, which since then our numbers have risen. And, you know, we unmasked as a community, as a state, and, you know, we all said, well, we'll just take personal responsibility to mitigate the spread of COVID. But there was no responsibility here.
Yes, there was.
Where?
Sarah Martinez notified members of council.
She didn't notify me.
I
You
notified
knew about it.
four out of the 6 counselors. Counselor Graham notified the other 2.
You were
She didn't-
notified.
No, she didn't call and notify me.
Well, okay, you
I
want to make
just-
a big deal out of the fact that she didn't do it. You knew. So you could take whatever precautions you want. And for whatever reason, you want to make a big stink about it now,
That was
which is insane.
That was like Sunday evening. It happened. She notified on Wednesday. How many events did we all attend that week? I wouldn't have attended those events. I wouldn't have attended my grandson's birthday party with his 90-year-old great grandfather there.
I tested Wednesday. Symptom onset was Wednesday, Counselor.
Yeah, but it was Saturday that I attended a party. So.
Counselor Graham.
I think maybe just moving forward, if anybody tests positive of COVID out of the counselor members or the staff that we come in contact with, can we just get an email from the mayor's office to either myself and I'll send it to everybody else
Sure.
or to everybody. And I think that could just solve the problem for everybody tonight. Yeah, but then we could just end the discussion about it tonight. If we can just, does everybody agree that that's fine? Okay, moving forward then.
Thank you, Counselor Graham. I want to reiterate again that I did my due diligence. Moving forward, it sounds like we have a process in place. Are there any other questions for staff for city updates? Counselor Graham.
Miss Solano, for the televised, the ARPA, the next one's coming up. Are these ones that had gone through the pillars too, or?
They have been through the pillars with a recommendation to the mayor.
So this
and
is like
his review of
the
the full
tail
list.
end of
This is that with this is
last
well,
tranche?
there's still more.
Okay,
But these are the last week's review of the mayor reviewing the list and saying these 6 I am supportive of and would like to recommend to city council, and the first opportunity to do that. And one of them that is important, and it's been important to Councilor Atencio, is the $75,000 request to the symphony. And so we looked at the agenda and were able to put them on as early as possible so that the first reading could be on the following week, and maybe we could move on in approvals. By the time you go through both the first reading and the second, there's an opportunity to move forward. So they're making the arrangements with the presenters as we speak this week.
okay, thank you.
Just to, I guess, clarify, are the pillars still meeting, Ms. Lano, even now?
As of last year, when we put a hold on any new applications, they have not been meeting except for a small group that are working on a combined request. And I think there are only 2 or 3 of those, but otherwise the pillars have not been meeting. We've had a conversation about how to recognize them for their work, but incident to the conversation later this evening, that'll give us direction on what to do with them going forward into 2022 and 3.
Thank you. Okay. Then our next agenda item is Mount Carmel Veteran Service Center. So can I call to the podium, Mr. McLaughlin?
Well, I'm honored to be here tonight to talk to you about the Mount Carmel Veteran Service Center. Madam Chairwoman, council members, Mr. Mayor, a pleasure. I did bring some slides with me. I think if you show them. Ooh. Okay. So I'm a proud veteran. I came to Colorado Springs to serve at Fort Carson in 2009. And that in the role I had there as garrison commander, I had a lot of interaction with leadership in Pueblo and basically came to love the area. And upon retirement, I had an opportunity to do this venture to run the Mount Carmel Veteran Service Center. established originally in Colorado Springs. So I want to give you an update on what we've been doing since we established services here in Pueblo. And again, thank you for this opportunity. There's a couple of important things when it comes to serving our veterans, and you probably know this with any public service. It's public-private partnership. I want to share a little bit with you about the successes of public-private partnership. I want to share some information with you on how organizations are coming together to do more in the southeast region of Colorado, and how we all plan as veteran service organizations to work with you, the leadership of the community, to do more with Pueblo as the hub of support in Southern Colorado as it involves. Very proud to do that. Here's kind of the vision and mission on how we established the Mount Carmel Veteran Service Center. The key things that I want to share with you is it's all about collaboration, community partnerships, using best practices, and specifically for me as a veteran, having boots on the ground. Being able to do services directly for our military veterans and their families. And that's what inspired me and my staff. And I brought Sal and Justin with me, go ahead and wave, who are working with me, both military members and veterans who served our country proudly and are here in Pueblo delivering services new this year. And I want to share with you more about that. 14,000 veterans, 4,800 Vietnam veterans, 6,000 of them get VA services. We're here to make sure that every veteran that needs help has access to services, and that's usually important to the team and the individuals that I've worked with in Pueblo to date. And here's what it looks like. When it comes to serving our military members and veterans in Southeast Colorado, and specifically Pueblo, for me, my lessons about best practices have always been the outreach piece and the services piece, to include links to housing, case management, financial counseling, and then, of course, transition and employment. And then lastly, access to healthcare, which is a big focus for everybody when it comes to the community and veterans. We always try to build these services around veteran service officers, because as they serve the county and the state, and we're able to come alongside of them as a private organization and provide wraparound services, it bolsters what the veterans get. So for a 5-year plan, which started in 2021 when I first came into Pueblo to try to expand the idea of doing a one-stop center, we reached what I called initial operating capability this January, where we had an outreach coordinator and we just hired an operations manager to work with community partners. Moving forward, we clearly want to build, clearly want to work with more partners and gain more synergy. Brian McCain, who I think you all know with Action 22, has been an amazing partner to help us with the work specifically in Southeast Colorado. Here's what the team looks like. And I'm proud of this. In a short period of time, with the support that we've been given, we've been able to grow from an outreach coordinator, which Sal is doing right now, and Justin is running operations. We now have in the community for serving veterans, one case manager, and we're going to hire in August what we call peer navigator, help with transition in employment. When we first came down and briefed the budget to the mayor, it was about $150,000 annually to provide services. We're probably at about $188,000 annually to provide services to the veterans in the community. To date, with public-private partnerships to include the city, the county, the El Pomar Foundation, the Rawlings Foundation, the state, we have garnered revenue to the tune of about $270,000 to support what we're doing here annually. The good news personally for me is we have a program called Veteran Connections. The additional dollars will go directly to serving veterans' immediate needs. Our mantra has always been, if a veteran is in need, give them a hand up, not a handout, and wrap around counseling to make sure that they're getting the services that they need moving forward. So I want to show you a picture which I think is exciting for us in this state. I'm also the vice president of the United Veterans Coalition of Colorado. And in that role, I try to work statewide to align with what the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs are doing. The picture you see before you shows the 5 regions of the state of Colorado. What I want to focus on is the Southeast region, and specifically Pueblo, for serving our veterans in a one-stop center manner. What I've proposed to the leadership statewide is that we use Southeastern Colorado as a model and Pueblo as the hub to serve our veterans. I'm excited about this because everybody seems to be on board. The state DMVA, if you don't know this, has a one-stop center in Grand Junction, which serves the Western Slope. I built the Mount Carmel Veterans Service Center in Colorado Springs. The vision today is to take the best of both of those public-private organizations and develop something in Pueblo that expands on what we've already done. So moving forward, you'll hear more about this as the state comes on board to do this one-stop center with some state support. And again, Brian McCain from Action 22 has been a big supporter of this. What I've proposed is that we bring our veteran service officers, our veteran service organizations, the VA, and the State Department closer to do better. And what I believe, just from my experience working with the leaders of this community, this can be a model for the state, which I'm personally committed to lead with others in the community. And that would be a Southeast Colorado pilot program with Pueblo as the hub. What I also want to show you is in a short period of time with public-private partnership, this is not all-inclusive, but this is a list of the partners that we've garnered to serve our military veterans and their families. We started out with a goal to touch the lives of at least 250 in the first 6 months, be able to refer about 500, and then through food distribution, which gets at at-risk challenges, to be able to touch about 1,000. To date, we've serviced about 150 direct service. We've referred about 150, and we've touched with our food distribution with Care and Share about 500. So my report to you is I believe that we are on track to continue to do more, to continue to get more veterans the assistance that they need moving forward. And the last thing I want to show you is kind of a picture of the timeline. This year, January 2022, is when we reached initial operating capability here at St. Mary Corwin with a suite, having an outreach coordinator, Sal and Justin. And now we have a case manager that's seeing clients and helping them with immediate needs. In August, we're going to have a transition and employment facilitator called a peer navigator to do additional services. So for me in this community, as a private organization working with you, the leaders, and working with the other partners, I believe we can continue to grow. And you've all heard that there's clearly a need for a one-stop center for our veterans. I'm here to help deliver that in Southeast Colorado as a veteran and as the executive director of the Mount Carmel Veteran Service Center. I think that together we can do so much more. And I appreciate, Mr. Mayor, the support that you've given us already for the council members. I encourage our partnership as we move forward. It's such an important thing here to make sure that our veterans and military members are cared for, because we all know that our military members are moving from El Paso County to Pueblo County, and we're going to need to make sure that we're caring for them and their families as well on all fronts. So that's an update from me. I look forward to entertaining any of your questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin, and thank you for your service. And Sal and Justin, thank you for your service as well. Okay. Any questions from council? Councilor Winter.
Hi, thanks for your presentation. Ben Stratton years ago told me that if I ever saw anybody on the streets with a sign that said veteran need help, asking for money, to call him and he would send somebody out immediately, or he would go out himself immediately. Do you have any outreach like that?
Well, I would tell you, he's sitting behind me, retired Sergeant Major.
Oh.
He's in Pueblo and he's outreaching to the community every day. Sal has a
Okay.
good handle on things that are going on. Not only is he enthusiastic about it, but he's working with the partners in the community.
Okay, good, good.
We firmly believe that anybody who's brought themselves to a position where they're holding up a sign for help,
Mhm.
we need to give them a hand up, not a hand out.
Right. Do you, is there any way to get that information out to the public for a number to call?
Absolutely.
Because I mean, that really upsets the public when they see signs like that on the street. So,
And that's clearly our number one priority. We, just like I did in Colorado Springs 6 years ago, to get veterans to understand, and you all know this if you have a military connection, our veteran community is very proud. They don't want to ask for help. We've got to make it easy. So that's the number one priority for me and these guys sitting behind me, to make it easy and make sure they know about it.
and of course, some of those guys may not be veterans either.
Yep.
Which is the case, but it's good that they go out and check on them immediately.
So there's an interesting statistic about some of the panhandlers that you see that claim to be Vietnam era veterans. 50% of them never served, of the panhandlers across the nation. They wear the uniform, and 50% of them have never even served. They're out trying to get some money.
Yeah, a lot of them are way too young for Vietnam as well.
Oh, they look at every veteran knows. Like, I don't check DD-214s, which is proof of service. You'll know within the first interaction if someone really served or not. And what I always do is, if they didn't, there's other resources to help them.
Okay. There's just this rumor, I suppose it's everywhere, that we have all of these homeless veterans. And I would just somehow like to get the message out to the public that they're being taken care of. Or if you see them, to call a number.
I appreciate that. And, our mantra is our veteran community in this town, in this county, make a good impact. We don't want the front lines to be, they're all homeless and in need. There are some that need help, but the contributions that they're making to the community is great. 2 of them are sitting behind me. So I'm proud of that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Counselor Maestri, did you have a question?
Yes. I want to hear your side of the impact, because, these are public meetings and some of them are televised and people watch them. The impact of closing the VA service centers and what that's going to do to the veteran community, because a lot of people don't know about that and that there's a big threat of that happening.
No, thank you for asking me that. I was involved with Senator Bennett's staff last week, and I would tell you from my position as a veteran, we're all advocating, to include our elected officials, that the premise of closing the veteran service organization, the VA organizations, was made on false information. The world has changed since COVID. We all believe that they should not be closed. When I talked about the Southeast Colorado pilot, I want to make sure that, first, it doesn't happen. Second, if it does happen, that organizations like mine and other organizations rally around the community so that the community network of care that provides private care to veterans is easy, because vets are very apprehensive sometimes to go out of the VA system. So number one, nobody that I've talked to believes that it should happen. If it does happen down the road in a few years, we want to make sure that we're solid as public-private partnerships to make sure that the VA community network of care cares for the veterans in lieu of any VA centers that close.
Okay.
Thanks for asking that.
Yes. I guess really what I wanted to ask, nobody wants it to happen, obviously. Right. I don't think there's anybody in this world that wants it to happen. But is there a threat? That's what my concern is, because that's what they keep talking about. And are you needing support from even city leadership in that argument? Is there an argument at this point?
Well, I think as you talk to leadership in the community and our federal legislators, everyone's galvanized against it. The mitigation for the threat, if they do close, is making sure that the private organizations like Health Solutions and others are part of the community network of care, so the veterans can get quick access to healthcare and behavioral health care in this community.
Okay.
Counselor Flores.
Yes, thank you for your report. It's great, the services that you're providing. Could you bring up the map, Daryl? Could you explain this map? There's lots of numbers. There's
Thank you.
yellow stars. There's a
So
Star.
can you get it or do you need to go back? So I've got it in front of me too. So the color code is the way the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs has divided up the state into regions. I was on a Tiger team as a veteran organization to help look at where the county veteran service officers are, the yellow stars, and how the state was putting in state veteran service officers by region. So in the Southeast region, the veteran service officer from the state is Eric. His job is to make sure that he's linked to what the county veteran services officers are doing. And the good news for me personally, having set up an office here in Pueblo, is that he does office hours with my team. So the public-private partnership of having a state VSO here in Pueblo representing the state, working with the county veteran service officers is important. And in the blue region, with all those VSOs around the Southeast region, he's actually supposed to make contact with all of them. And the power of having the VSOs connected to a veteran service organization is incredible. For me personally, in El Paso County, I have 2 county VSOs working in my building, and the synergy is amazing. My goal is to create similar synergy in the Southeast region.
And the numbers, like I can see Pueblo County has 14,154. What does that number mean?
So the registered veterans in the county.
One issue that I've been working on is, and it's not just a veterans issue, is the situation that people are finding themselves in the foreclosure situation. And it would appear to me that the veterans also are in that mix. And there is money available through the state now was funneled through from the feds that will be providing that service and working out an arrangement with the mortgage holder and also potentially catching them up with payments or rearranging the loan, but at least keeping those people in those homes. And I'm wondering what you're seeing from veterans, especially those that have VA loans and maybe are facing foreclosure.
Well, exactly as you explained, especially 2020 was terrible for veterans and people in transition, probably the most challenging time period. The good news for me as a veteran serving nonprofit, I saw a tremendous amount of federal support, state support, county support, and city support. The organizations that had public dollars kind of opened the aperture. You know, the analogy I use is a good wine belongs in the glass, not on the shelf. So with the funders, they learned that if they needed to be agile to put money into the hands of organizations that could get it to the veterans, within the first 18 months of COVID, we just for rent assistance, we were able to probably give out $800,000 of rent assistance to get people over the hump. Now, as it applies to mortgages, we're trying the same things to make sure that the money through the state, county, and feds gets to the right place. And organizations like mine kind of broker that to make sure that the vets know that there's somewhere to turn. That's the most important thing.
Thank you.
Counselor Martinez Ortega, since you're via Zoom, I'm just wondering if you have any questions.
No questions right now. Thank you.
I'm curious about the peer navigation program. Will you be hiring those peers from Pueblo, and what is that going to look like?
We just put out the description about 2 days ago, and the goal is, you know, just like Sal is from Pueblo, he's got family roots here. We want to have the vets from Pueblo service the vets in Pueblo. That's the most important thing to me.
That's great news. Thank you. Any other questions then from council Seeing none, I appreciate the presentation, Mr. McLaughlin. And we look forward to seeing you guys soon. Thanks for
My
all you
honor.
do.
Thank you.
All right, moving along on our agenda. The next presentation is around marijuana taxes. So can I call to the podium, Mr. Gloss and Dr. Hassan, and Mayor, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the council. I'm going to do a brief introduction, and I think then Trevor will go through a PowerPoint that he's put together that gives you the details and the tax numbers that we've received in the last couple of years from marijuana, from sales tax, from excise tax we get from the state, excise tax we get from the county. But I want to preface the remarks by saying, we wanted to do this some time ago. We've been having some discussions internally with the planning department. We have some marijuana grow facilities on the perimeter of the city that might be annexable. They apply with the city for water. And part of our agreement is that they must agree to be annexed into the city if they're going to take that extraterritorial water. They're paying a premium on the water since they're in the county and getting city water. But part of the reason that they're reluctant to be annexed is because our excise tax is not competitive with the county's excise tax. The city of Pueblo has an excise tax of 8% at the current time. And under the ordinance that was enacted by the people, the city council has the legal authority to adjust that tax. You can make it whatever you want to, as long as it doesn't exceed 15%. That's the cap. You can't exceed 15%. Right now it's at 8%. The county's excise tax on marijuana is 5%. So it puts our growers in the city at a competitive disadvantage and makes it more expensive for them. And you'll learn that the excise tax is a tax that's paid by a grower when he transfers that product to someone else. When the crop is harvested, the product is transferred, an excise tax has to be paid based on either the actual retail price or the average market price of marijuana that's set by the state of Colorado. And that average market price set by the state has sort of lagged behind what reality is in terms of what the prices are. And Dr. Hassan is in the business. He can certainly explain that to you. But the taxes we're receiving from marijuana, from retail sales of marijuana in 2022, 2021, all the taxes we received from marijuana were up. 2022 is not looking good. For April, the retail sales tax on marijuana was down 30%, was down 27% in March, 44% in February, 50% in January. You remember during COVID, maybe this is because everybody was staying at home and they didn't have to work, or they could work from home where they didn't have to be around people. The marijuana retail sales taxes were up there. People were using it. It's sort of changed a little bit now. So without any further introduction, I think I'll turn it over to Mr. Gloss and have him run through here in a little more detail what the excise tax situation is in the city compared to the county. And he can go through the numbers of what we've actually collected. So Trevor, take it away. Want to put the PowerPoint up, Vero?
Sorry about that. Again, my name is Trevor Gloss. I'm Assistant City Attorney with the City of Pueblo. Tonight, I'm going to give you a brief presentation on marijuana taxes within the city, state, and county. So at the state level, medical marijuana isn't taxed much. There's just the regular sales tax of 2.9% on the medical side. For retail, though, retail is taxed at with an excise tax and a state sales tax. So the state excise tax, as the mayor said, is calculated based on that first transfer of marijuana, whether it's being sold to a store or a product manufacturer, or just transferred to a commonly owned business. It's only imposed on the retail marijuana cultivations, essentially. And the state constitution, state law says the state can go up to 15%. the state has set its maximum or set its rate at the maximum of 15%. For sales tax, the law again says that the state can go up to 15%, and it has gone up to that high. With sales tax, 10% of that revenue is, well, collected by the state, is given back to local governments. And based on the local government's share of the marijuana tax collected, so it would be the city's 8 retail stores, based on how much those stores sell, the city gets a portion of that 10% back, which in 2020 was about 379,000, and then in 2021 was 384,000. As of 2021, 18 states and the District of Columbia have legalized the sale of retail marijuana. The tax rates and tax structures vary. The highest is 37% in Washington, and Alaska doesn't even charge one. They just have a $50 fee with every sale. So I should also point out that the sales tax, as mentioned, is just on the sales from retail marijuana stores. So you have the excise tax, which is only on cultivations, and then the sales tax, which is just on retail marijuana stores. At the local level, municipally, we do have a special sales tax on medical marijuana. It's not too high. It's 4.3%. Retail marijuana, we can go up to 15% per our ordinances. It's currently set at 8%. The city collected $562,000 in 2020 and $797,000 in 2021, just in retail marijuana excise taxes. The city does not have its own special sales tax. Instead, it has an agreement with the county, which I'm going to go into a little bit more. So the county excise tax is set at 5%. That is actually the maximum the county can set it at per state law. The city, well, if the city was a statutory city, it would also be limited to 5%, but because it's home rule, it can technically go up as high as the state can. So technically as high as 15%. This 5% that the county charges, though, for excise tax was phased up over 4 years, started at 1 and went to 5. The city receives no portion of this excise tax. It's just something that the county collects on its own. Now, the county special sales tax is the one that you guys see more often. They collect 6% special sales tax on all retail marijuana stores within their jurisdiction, which currently includes the 8 stores within the city. The city receives a portion of this tax for the 8 retail stores in the city. That's basically like a 3.5% tax after all the calculations are done. The county is not actually obligated to give us any money. It's just given to the city per that agreement to make it a little bit more palpable to the city. The county uses the remaining funds for their detention center and other law enforcement purposes. So in 2020, the city received $676,000 from the county and special sales tax, and $652,000 in 2021. If the city were to impose its own special sales tax via voter approval, that state law then prohibits the county from collecting from those 8 retail stores within the city. The only way they could do so is if they entered into agreement with the city, where the city specifically allows them to start collecting again. This could affect any plans the county has for the detention center and their law enforcement, but it's just something for council to know. So, and then the total tax revenues in 2020, again, that's just from the special sales tax that the city has. That's 66,000 about. From retail in 2020, between the excise tax, that portion received from the state, the city's small portion, that 10%, the municipal excise tax of 8% on retail marijuana cultivations, and the portion of the county sales tax that we get, that came to about 1.6 million. In 2021, medical went down to 48,000 in that special sales tax. And then the retail revenue went up to 1.8 million. And that concludes the presentation.
So I'd like to call Dr. Hassan up now, give you his perspective on the water. I'd like to call Dr. Hassan up now to give you his perspective on this. He's talked to me for the last year or so about what he believes is the inequity in the city's marijuana excise tax with respect to the county's excise tax, and how he thinks that makes it more difficult for him to compete with county entities. So, Dr. Hassan, good evening.
You rather underrepresented my position.
I underrepresented your position?
Yes.
That's why I have you here, so you can represent your own position.
We are being subjected to what I'll call, well, first let me introduce myself. I'm from Pakistan, and I had my neurology training in National Hospital at Queen Square in London. When my family moved from India.
Dr. Hassan, closer to the microphone, if you will, so that it can be recorded. Perfect.
Okay. So when my family moved from India to Pakistan for a substantial period of time, I was in a refugee camp with no running water, no running sewage, and had a sort of a very educational, miserable experience as to how things my family to begin with was very wealthy, but after the partition happened and they had to move to save their life from India to Pakistan, suddenly we ended up in the refugee camp. So that's one of the backgrounds. And, but I pulled myself up by my bootstrap. My family couldn't pay for my education, but thankfully I was endowed by a certain intellect which allowed me to have multiple scholarships, which paid for my education. After my education, I went to England to do my neurology. Since then, I have immigrated to United States, and the reason I immigrated to United States was that I wanted to go to a country which was free, corruption-free, and basically a person was judged by their own merit, as the famous saying, not by the color of their skin, but by the content of your thoughts. Not that anybody discriminated against me on my brown color, or at least I'm not aware of it. But anyhow, I was in practice in Pueblo. Everybody was shocked. Anybody who has been trained at the National Hospital can write their own ticket and practice any place. But I chose Pueblo because it was peaceful. People were smiling. And I said, hey, I can be in San Francisco. I can be any place, LA, but where am I going to get such smiling faces? And you can change things, but what you can't change is the people around you. So I fell in love with the people of Pueblo and with Pueblo. Everybody said, oh, you are going to that Steel City, Denver. I had offers from various neurologists to come and work as their partner. I said, forget it. I'm very happy here. And I'm going to be more happy because there was more to do here, because nothing has been done before that in neurosciences. I set up the dedicated neuro floor in both hospitals and dedicated neurointensive care unit, the first one in the entire country. The next one, that was 75. The next one was in 89. The reason I'm regaling all this is I can see the future, not clearly, but much more clearly than anybody else. And one of the incentive to come to Pueblo was I can do far more here than having a junior partner in a partnership in San Francisco, LA, or Chicago, or any of those places. And I've not been disappointed. I have done fabulous work, if I may say so myself, on neurosciences. Parkview Hospital became the neuro center and trauma center, thanks to my effort, it was going out of business, and I rescued it from it. And then I decided to go into the health plan intrigued me. I went into the health plan, and everybody said, you are out of your mind. You are competing with Blue Cross Blue Shield, Prudential, Equitable, companies which have been around for over 100 years. How would you compete with them? And I said, simple. I know more than any of their officers know how to conduct a health plan. Very soon, I was number 4, and I believe Fortune 100 company in 8 years, starting in 1986. Oh, actually, it took more than that, 12 years. After that, I brought 1,500 jobs to Pueblo. But the problem was Colorado, we were losing our shirt every year because they had this peculiar law that one person can constitute a group. So everybody will become a group, and you have to give them the group premium. And people will do what they will do was pregnant women will come and enroll 1 month before they're pregnant, before their delivery, and then terminate after 1 month. So we are losing our shirt, and I try to tell these legislators that don't do it. It's killing the insurance business in this. So when the board decided that they had to get out of Pueblo, get out of Colorado, I said, well, give me a favor. I'm also tired. I want to retire. Close it down when I leave. So when I left, they closed it down. But as a deference to me, they paid anything like 6 to 12 months, 24 months of severance pay to everybody, despite the fact that everybody got their job within 15, 20 days because people from Presbyterian plan, the Blue Cross Blue Shield plan, both from Colorado, had coerced outside the Qualmed building to recruit the people who are being laid off. So having done all that, during that time, I also realized that Pueblo will always remain a backwater unless until we elevate the education level. I founded and funded the Hassan School of Business, and then state chipped in, and state paid the major part of the construction. But I don't know whether you have gone to Hassan School of Business or not. Please do that, and you will see that building unlike any other academic building in the entire country, because I'm the one who made the drawing in the sense that it has very wide corridors, because the students don't go to the common room, they stand in the corridors and talk and disrupt the classes, and put the furniture along the wall so that they can sit down and have a conversation. And the lecture theater electronically enable every student without going to the blackboard to not only question the teacher, but also answer questions without getting out of their chair. It's projected onto the screen. To tell you the truth, I think it was the best investment of my life, because it's now in the top 10% of the business schools in the entire world. It is internationally accredited, it's statewide accredited, is more highly regarded. Half the student enrollment is from abroad, not from Middle East, not China, but the likes of Germany, Netherlands, Sweden. And that is a matter of some pride for me, because they can get that free education free in their own countries, and yet they come here. The reason I'm saying this, all this is that there is a golden opportunity for this city to embrace some. I know there are people who think it's somehow the other is maybe against their sort of some belief system, but this is a biotechnology. Marijuana has 545 active biological molecules, of which at least 5,000 drugs can be made. And if we were to embrace it, we can have a we can basically have Boulder going to, by comparison, Pale. We have an opportunity to have a great city and a great educated workforce. It will create at least at a minimum 20 to 30,000 highly paid professional jobs if the research was done. But when I went to the CSU Pueblo to say, gee, I would like you to do the research, they said our system won't let us do it. So, okay, why? Because they don't want to touch marijuana, because they think that will bring on the wrath of the federal government. So I said, well, set up a meeting. Let's go and talk to Tony Franks, who was the president. The first thing he said, Dr. Hassan, I know why you are here. And the answer is no. And he pointed to a lady sitting next to him, who was the chief legal officer of the system, and said, she won't let me do it. So I said, okay, if that's the case, why is she not president? Why are you president? Leaders lead. You're not leading. So the honorable thing for you would be to quit and let her be the president. He said, no, Dr. Hassan, don't be offensive. I said, no, I'm just telling you the truth. And then after all the conversation, I got a letter 2 months later, which said, Dr. Hassan, we have decided to get into the marijuana research because the case you have made. And we will leave it to the option of each campus to start doing it. That is how I got involved. And because I also made a promise to him that federal government won't come after any institution in Colorado, because I had some contacts. And so lo and behold, in 2015, when I'm talking to him, I said, within a year, we will have a change of scheduling where it was the Schedule 1 had a special exemption that anything done under the research is exempt. It's not falling afoul of the federal government. So it's not that I'm there to collect a lot of money and get rich. I'm rich. My house is $52 million, which I built here, which people think I was crazy to build here. And but I love the city. I show it by my actions. Now, what is happening with the marijuana is almost a business suicide. We have excise tax in Denver, 0. Would you read it?
And would you mind stating your name for the record?
Yes,
please?
yes. Good evening. My name is Paul Julian. I'm corporate counsel for Newview Pharma. That's the company that Dr. Hassan owns. And I do a lot of the marijuana excise tax in relation with in association with our controller and a lot of our licensing as well. So what Dr. Hassan has before him is just a brief comparison of some local jurisdictions across the Front Range and their excise tax rates. So he was pointing out Denver is 0%, Fort Collins is 0%, Arapahoe County is 0%, Trinidad is 0%. And then you get to the city of Pueblo and it's 8%. And as Trevor mentioned, in the county, it's 5%. So I'll let Dr. Hassan continue, but that's obviously.
You also read the sales tax.
Of course.
Read the licenses.
Sure.
It's like open season on goose, which is going to lay the golden eggs, but they say, let's slaughter it right now and get all the eggs that we can get.
So, right, as far as the sales tax go, Trevor mentioned again, it's 6% in the county, and that's imposed on the 8 city marijuana operators. Denver, it's a little less, 5.5%, but it quickly goes down. This Arapahoe County, again, 0%, Fort Collins, 0%, Trinidad's only 5%, despite the plethora of stores they have there. So again, you're looking at kind of Pueblo County, which affects the city operators is the highest that we're seeing on this list. And license fees, to me, is very striking. And I know we're primarily going through taxes, but just to briefly summarize, you have a lot of your grow, dispensary, and extraction lab licenses are between $10,000 and $15,000 for an annual operating fee. And then on top of that, you have what's called a conditional use permit, which there's a lot of redundancy. For example, at our one location, we have an extraction lab, a grow, and a store, and we pay a $5,000 conditional use permit on all three of those licenses, despite it being the same property. And it's kind of this great redundancy in the inspections we have to schedule with stormwater, with fire, whatever. We have to get them out 3 times a year for the same property. Whereas you look at other local jurisdictions that I mentioned, they don't have that conditional use permit requirement. And in addition, Trinidad, for example, all license types are $1,000 annual operating fee. And in Pueblo, we're looking at, again, $10,000 to $15,000 for the 3 license types.
For each unit.
Correct.
For the store, for the extraction, for the grow.
Correct.
It comes to about 55 there to keep the doors open. And that is not including the property tax, which is like a commercial building. It's a warehouse, for goodness sake, but we are being taxed as if we are the top commercial building in the city. So at every level, everybody is trying to get a piece of us. And I'm saying is we will give it to them. And then when it closes down, I had over 100 employees. I've already laid off about 60.
Yes.
60 employees from 150 employees. We are down to 60 employees. We laid off the remaining because the competition and the prices are such, we can't compete. We can't compete with any of the facility or in Denver, for goodness sake. That is supposed to be high cost area, but we can't compete with them. So I've closed down my grow, and if at this rate it continues, I'll close down. The remaining 60 people can also go. I can take the losses, but it will be a first time in my life that I will be accepting defeat. So what I have done is, and that is what got Mr. Gratishaw's attention, I'm putting a ballot out to have the excise tax to go down to 0 and to have the special taxes, sales tax also. That is the second part of the ballot. And I am going to pursue it with all my vigor, with all my resources. So you have an opportunity to be proactive. I also founded the ICR, which is at CSU Pueblo. This is Institute of Cannabis Research, which can be a jewel in this because they don't have anything like that in any other city. I want the city to embrace it, support it, and make it something that we can all be proud of. And so much so that things have gotten so bad. This was a work group put up by the state to see what we should do with the taxes. Would you read those portions that I've underlined?
Sure. And again, this is a recently developed report by the State Marijuana Enforcement Division that's going to be turned over to the Colorado legislature for some recommendations, including on the excise tax. And it's a long report, but this is kind of the summary conclusion paragraph. And it says, removing the retail marijuana excise tax is imperative to improving Colorado's chances of success when marijuana is federally legalized. Although removing the state excise tax is challenging, legislative action and careful consideration will be required to ensure that Colorado can keep the marijuana revenue balanced. Considering the barriers that Tabor imposes on the General Assembly to promote unilateral changes to existing taxes, it is paramount that Colorado moves forward toward removing this barrier because it directly hinders Colorado's ability to succeed and lead in the marijuana market. Initial steps should be taken by the Colorado legislature as soon as possible so that Colorado can proactively prepare the state and its businesses for this change. So essentially, this MED work group report was anticipating what's going to happen upon federal legalization and how is Colorado going to keep competitive with other states. And the pinpoint here was the excise tax. And there was a comparison to other states, most of which, I think with the exception of Nevada, do not impose an excise tax, or at least one that's far less than the 15% of the state level that Colorado imposes. And so we see that corollary at the local level in terms of Pueblo's competitiveness with other local jurisdictions and seeing, okay, what's Pueblo's excise tax rate. And as Mayor Gradisar mentioned, there's cultivators in the county and they don't want to be annexed into the city because of that 3% difference. And it's even greater in other areas in Southern Colorado in the local jurisdiction excise tax rates therein.
I don't know whether you are aware of it or not, but a lot of the grows are closing down. Did you get the number, Nick?
I have not got
Okay.
it.
The rumor is 40 grows have been closed down. I can't vouch for it because I made that information available to the mayor and asked him if he can verify it, because I don't want to make a statement which later on turned out to be untrue and outrageous. But this is what is being talked about. So I will request that it should be brought down to 0. And also there should be some adjustment on the sales tax and some adjustment on the license fee.
Well, Dr. Hassan, thank you so much for the information. And Mayor, I'm just cognizant of time just to make sure that we're moving through the agenda. I want to retain time for questions as well. Are we okay to move to questions? Okay. What questions are there from council? Councilor Flores was quicker than Councilor Winter.
I'll defer to you, ladies before gentlemen.
That's fine.
Okay. Clarify the ballot issue that you just described. Are we talking about a state ballot issue, removing the 15% state tax, or are you talking about a local ballot issue?
Local, correct.
And is that confirmed the fact that we don't have the unilateral authority as a city council to change that it has to go back to the voters? I just want to be clear about that.
City council has the authority to adjust the excise tax.
Oh, okay.
For the city, not for the state.
Right. And so your ballot issue is really state, not local.
No,
Ballot issue is local.
local, because I'm starting local, but I have the commitment for the governor that he will push this recommendation of 0 excise tax on the state level and also reduction of the sales tax.
Okay. So if we're willing to enact action here,
Well,
you wouldn't need to do the local.
I'm requesting that the council should decide to have a 0 excise tax and see whatever reduction you can make in the sales tax. Because we are competing with other states. And the second thing is that as far as the state is concerned, I'm working on state and I'm very confident that I'll get the state in line. I have a persuasive case, a compelling case, and anybody to whom I have talked to, including the governor, has committed that they will push this forward. This is a goal of this state.
Let me just make sure everybody understands. The city does not have a sales tax on marijuana at all.
But you get it through the back door from the county. County collects for you.
The county collects a sales tax, but the voters of the city of Pueblo specifically turned down a sales tax on marijuana. That's the only reason why the county is able to impose a sales tax on retail marijuana. So we don't have any control over that.
Yeah, the city went, no, you have a control and you will see the ballot. You won't be able to do it. You won't be able to accept any concession from any outside jurisdiction. That is the part of the ballot. What the city did was, they are, to say the least, are sneaky. Because the voter turned down the ballot, they said, how do we get around this voter rejection? They went to the county and said, you raise a tax and give it to me, give it to us. So now one of the things that I'm adding is a second part. One is the simple part, no excise tax. But the second part says, city will not accept any reduction, any part of any sales tax collected by any other jurisdiction.
That's in your sales tax initiative.
That is sales tax.
Yeah, not in the excise tax initiative. There are actually going to be 2 issues on the ballot if Dr. Hassan proceeds. One will eliminate the excise tax. The other will impose a city sales tax of 4.3%.
4.5%.
4.5% on retail marijuana in the city, which the city doesn't have now. So to that extent, we get more money.
That was done because the city needs some funds So we thought very carefully and said, okay, because what is happening is county keeps 1% of whatever they collect on the sales tax.
Well, they keep more than that now because they raised their sales tax and we're only getting a percentage of the lower amount, I think. We have an agreement with them and the excess of that is going towards their county jail, which if the city sales tax is imposed, will bring all that into question, I think. But that's probably beyond the discussion here. I think the question here is, does the council have any appetite to try to negotiate or try to adjust the excise tax? I mean, if Dr. Hassan says he wants it to be zero and that's his bottom line, then obviously that's his bottom line. I mean, my recommendation to council would be that we make it even with the county's excise tax. And if at some point the state does away with their excise tax or the county does away with their excise tax, the city council has the ability to adjust that excise tax as well. That you have the ability to do that. But if that's all moot because we're going to have a ballot issue anyway, we may as well just let the voters decide. So to some extent, I think that's up.
I'm willing to go up to 2% in the excise tax. I've already doing a big favor to you to get the 4.5%, which is what you're getting now from this county after they have taken their cut. I'm protecting the city.
Councilman Flores, do you have any further questions?
Not right now. I mean, this has to be studied. And I guess the only question I would have is that if you flip-flop into sales tax versus excise, has anybody done the calculation as to whether we still receive the same amount of revenue?
We've calculated if we reduced it from 8% to 5%, based on 2020's numbers, we would lose, it would have been $211,000 less. Based on 2021's numbers, it would have been about $299,000 less. So a total reduction in 2020 of about 13% in our total marijuana revenue, and about 16% in 2021 if we reduce it from 8% to 5% to match the counties. But we haven't done a calculation if you can look here though and see on Trevor's report how much we're getting.
Is Pueblo consumer richer than the consumer in Denver or Fort Collins? That you are putting the sales tax on them, you are putting the excise tax, which you have to pass on to the consumer. Have some heart for consumers. You represent them.
I just want to clarify, Mayor. I think Councilman Flores was asking about the retail sales tax, not the excise tax, if I heard that correctly.
Just a comparison. Well, right now, taking Dr. Hassan at his word that in 2021, we got $652,000 from the county. That's our share of the sales tax that they impose. So that's a little more than we collect in our own excise tax. In 2020, it was $676,000 in retail sales tax that we got from the county. So
Counselor, sorry, Mayor.
in excise
Our
tax,
ballot will cut off the middleman, and city will be getting as much in the sales tax as they're getting now through this county. What will happen is that the county will lose the portion that they are putting in their pockets for collecting from the sales in the city. It's outrageous. We had a revolution in this country, no sales, what was it? Without representation. We have no representation in the county, so to speak. We are a city entity, and yet we are being taxed by county as well as the city.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I guess I have a question. In 2021 and in 2022, there were 4 bordering states that legalized recreational marijuana. So that's the issue of why those sales have gone down in Colorado. And it was just in the paper in the Denver Post that Buddy Boy in Denver is closing 7 stores. So it's the boom's kind of over. So how has this affected your Trinidad store with New Mexico legalizing just in 2022?
We don't know what the impact would be because it was just being rolled.
No, I mean just your sales anyway, because I mean New Mexico just legalized in January. So how has that affected your sales in Trinidad, your Trinidad store?
Sales will go down here.
Have they already gone down is what I'm asking.
Especially if it is higher price here because of all the taxes.
Yeah, but they're still not going to drive across the border.
I'm concerned about the license fee because
Yeah.
from where would I collect that license?
Right. So no, not only do we have the tax on top of that, we've got all this extra competition. Did Utah pass recreational marijuana yet?
No, they did not.
Okay. What about Nebraska? Have
Probably
they?
will be one of the last ones. Nebraska, I believe, is contemplating a medical marijuana program, but
Yeah, so it's only a matter of time they go.
right.
So that'll be everybody then around us.
United States, what excise tax we use at the state
Sure, I can.
I mean, I think we sold people on the fact that of the money that we would generate off the revenue, the taxes and so forth. So it's going to be pretty hard to try to take that away now. I mean, that's what a lot of people voted for this based off of the revenue and the taxes that we were going to generate. And then, we've been going through it for so many years now and people are just kind of over it.
I don't think excise tax was ever put to the general public. It was a decision ordinance by the council.
Oh, well, I think you have I'm sure the public would love to re-vote on something in regards to marijuana. I don't think that they're going to want to lose any type of revenue.
Every time a ballot asking for more taxes has been put to the public in any part of the state, it has been turned down. As it was, even the sales tax was turned down, the special sales tax. The excise tax was never put. It was the legislation under which the constitutional change was made. The legislation allowed them to have 15% at the state level and some additional at the local level. And under those they are operating. It was never put to the voters.
Right.
Except the excise tax, Dr. Hassan. The voters of Pueblo decided on this excise tax, and they gave the city council the authority to impose that excise tax in that range from 0 to 15%. And the council set it at
And Mayor, they
8%.
chose 8. How long ago did they change? How long ago was that put into effect? How many
Well, I'm
years?
sure it
has
was
this
right
been?
after marijuana was legalized.
Okay, and then, so
You know-
everyone within the city has been paying, every marijuana grow within the city or marijuana facility within the city has been paying that 8%.
Pardon me?
Every marijuana facility within the city has been paying the 8%.
Every grow facility.
Okay, all right. So now you want to come in and you want to you're having to come into the city, but you want us to reduce it to not even 5. You want us to reduce it to 0. Is that correct?
Could you repeat the question, please?
You don't just want to reduce it to 5 like the county, you want to reduce it to 0%, the excise tax.
My operations are not in the county. The
Oh,
only thing I
so-
have
so
in the
you're already
county is a
paying the
store.
So you're
Let
already,
me tell you, the only thing I have is a second store in the county of which the license fee are much lower than what I pay to the city.
oh, so you want us, you've already been paying these years, you've been paying the 8% excise tax and you want us to reduce it to the 5?
I don't grow in the county.
Okay, thank you.
If I grew there and I was paying excise tax, our excise tax and sales tax between every month, now that the sales are down, so it has gone down. But last year and the year before was like almost over $300,000 a month.
I think
And that is not including the property taxes. That is not including the license fees. No business can survive with that degree of taxation. Now, let me make a plea. If you care about employment in the city and some prosperity, I will beseech you to do the rational thing. And rational thing is not how much can we get out of this, out the consumer, because ultimately the consumer pays and consumer can walk away. There are other jurisdictions where the prices are lower.
Dr. Hassan, I think what Councilor Maestri is asking, and the mayor even, is we understand that your ballot proposal right now, your ballot measure is to lower 8% to 0% for the
Yes.
excise tax.
Yes.
Are you willing to get it to 5%, comparable to the county?
5% is the highest, then it will be the highest in the state.
But it would still be a reduction of 3% from what you're
No,
currently
that
paying.
doesn't, I'm trying to keep my doors open, for goodness sake. 3% won't make the difference.
Yeah,
I know what I'm talking about. I do the cost accounting. I do the, where are the problems? And the 5% differential between me and Trinidad and Denver, Arapahoe County, is not enough.
and we hear you when you say that there's multiple struggles. It's not just the excise tax. For example, when you mentioned that there were some systems improvements around the permitting process earlier. So you have one building, but there's 3 separate permits that you need to pull, and, or not permits, but the process. That sounds like there could be a potential to streamline there for potential cost savings.
Well, we have been doing it. We are in the one building, and in the one building, we have 3 licenses or more than 3?
We have 6 licenses because it's, yeah,
Licenses in one building with one address
and 3 conditional use permits.
and 3 conditional permits.
And it sounds like that maybe could be a potential area of improvement to streamline that.
And on top of that, the property tax is what, 50,000?
Around that.
Which
Yeah.
was warehouse. When I bought that place, the property tax was like between 5 and 10,000. Suddenly I made the improvement and they said, now you will pay more. Whenever I turned around, it's like, oh, you don't care whether your business succeeds or not. Let me share something with you. You are representing the consumers and the citizens of Pueblo. If you are not aware of what will bring jobs here, and with the jobs come the prosperity, this city is doomed to failure.
Councilor Graham has a couple of questions.
Mr. Gloss, these questions are actually for you. So if you want to come and take the podium, these are for Mr. Gloss, sir. Do you know offhand how many grows we actually have within the city limits?
Last count, I think, was.
Got to use the microphone for me.
Last count for grows, I think, was 6 to 10 within the city limits.
6 to 10?
Yeah, we did have 1 surrendered license within the last year, Herbal Gardens. I'm not sure where the 40 grows Dr. Hassan mentions are coming from, maybe on the county. In the county, okay.
Oh, so we're the city though, so we're only worried about the 6 to 10. And then also, can you tell us on average how much of this excise tax just one of these grows pays, just the average amount to the city with the 8%? Just off the top of your head, I mean, Mr. Hassan said they pay 300,000. Is that correct, close, incorrect?
For Dr. Hassan, it could be possible. He does have the largest grow in town. I think for our classes, we divide grows based on the number of plants, and I think he's at the highest level. So it's quite possible that he is paying the majority of that tax because the other grows in town are definitely smaller operations.
If I understand correctly, they were.
I can't speak.
Okay. And then are we allowing more grows within the city limits, or there can be more grows? And Mayor, do you foresee if we do away with this tax or lower this tax that we're actually going to get more prospects coming into the city to try to grow, or are people pretty much just growing where they are? It doesn't.
Well,
6 to 10 grows doesn't seem like a whole lot for
I
us to
think
even be bickering about.
I think where we'll get them are those ones that are on the perimeter of Pueblo that are using Pueblo water that we can require to annex into the city, or that might want to annex because they'll pay less for their water. If they're treated similarly as the county, or the excise tax is lower than the county. That would be a reason for them to want to come into the city. And, obviously I want to try to get as many people in the city as possible.
Right.
And just to add on to what the mayor was saying, I apologize. So taxes and fees are definitely a large part of it. The city does also have certain regulations, though, that make it more difficult for grows that are coming from the outside. For example, all grows within the city have to be an enclosed structure. That was something that was decided early on. So most of the grows in the county are outside, and they would then have to build a building around their grows or move inside or something along those lines. So it's a lot more than they can or would like to do for those as well, which makes it difficult.
And Mr. Gloss, if this ballot initiative does come forward, do you see it being complicated for your average voter if Mr. Hassan also gets the 4.5 sales tax in with the city, and we can see a no vote on both of them, and the city would lose out on sales tax and excise tax? Do you guys foresee that happening? Or could that be a challenge that we see? Because we don't want to lose all the tax.
Oh, sure. No, I think it'd be a challenge for sure. And we'll have our own taxes on there. The public has approved the public safety tax every 5 years, and the economic development tax every 5 years. This year, the public safety tax is up, and so that'll be on the ballot. And so obviously, in my judgment, and everybody has their own judgment about this, that the less tax measures that are on the ballot, the better off we are, because people get confused, and there's that attitude, they get confused, they don't understand it, just vote no.
And then just my last question is, can you just tell us some of the things that the excise tax pays for? I know scholarships, if some of it's going to be going.
No, none of the city's money is dedicated. We can't sort of earmark the city's money. It goes into the general fund. All this marijuana money just comes into the general fund. There's no earmark for scholarships or for roads or for police or anything like that. It just comes into the general fund.
And none of it will be for the jail, or will some of it be for the jail?
None of our excise taxes for the jail. The deal we've made with the county is when they raise their marijuana tax, is that they're only paying us a percentage of the previous rate, and the additional funds that they got when they raised the sales tax in the county all goes to them for that purpose of the jail, but we don't get any of that.
Councillor Flores, then Councillor Winter.
We get it.
We have industrial revolution with the steel mill. After that, there was an electric revolution. It missed completely. No TVs, nothing like that. Then electronic, it missed it. Keep on missing it. The last opportunity it has to get onto a winning strategy is biotechnology. I'm not talking about marijuana per se. I'm talking about when you have 545 biologically active molecules which are present in marijuana. Every pharmaceutical company would want to come here and claim some part of those molecules to produce drugs. They have run out of molecules, regular molecules. The only molecules which are now available is the biotechnology, and marijuana is the largest source of those. And that was my interest, that this is the way of the future, that we will attract pharmaceutical companies, will attract testing companies, will attract a whole series of things that we don't have currently.
Is it my turn? Okay. No, I just had a couple of comments. One is that what's happening in the marijuana industry right now is a lot of heavy duty competition. I mean, it's enormous right now, because it's not only affected you right now, it's going to continue to affect you as states and even the feds are talking, maybe it would be a federal law at some point. So I can see that the demand is diminishing. And I would agree that maybe the taxes have some effect, but I think the biggest thing here is competition.
Yes.
And the low demand that is being spread out throughout the United States. I'm not ready to make a decision tonight, and I don't think we should be.
Let me make.
Yeah, let me just finish
Let
my
me add
comment.
one more point here. When you see that competition here becomes untenable, that we'll have a tenable business here. And one of the competition, you're forgetting two major competition, not among the official, but the black market. Black market people pay no excise tax, no sales tax, and they can grow in their basement and can outprice us any day of the week. And the second is smuggling in the black market from Northern California. Northern California has a very peculiar ecosystem. They grow it on the federal land, so land doesn't cost them anything. There's plenty of rain, so they don't need water. And they steal the electricity. That is why PG&E is going out of business. And the only expense they have is a few employees, period.
Yeah,
We can't compete with them.
Yeah. I understand all of that. And
And the other thing is, that is why I'm trying to move into biotechnology. Take it as a platform, and I'm asking for your help to make that happen.
yeah,
And
it's really
not just for
it's
me,
really a
not just for me,
Yeah.
or other big companies like pharmaceutical companies, others, and say, come here and do the research and create biotechnology drugs.
I think all of us on the council understand your dilemma, and the dilemma is competition. And the question is whether the city would like to help you by reducing one of your expenses to make your product, more competitive. And that's really what it boils down to. And I think all of us need to do that
Well,
analysis.
And what will happen
I understand fully.
Yeah.
if
yeah.
they make it more competitive, I can stay in business and go to
Yeah,
my
yeah.
next phase, which is biotechnology.
Yeah, yeah.
Now that area
I'm
is
sorry.
completely a pristine area, which
No,
I don't-
it is, I have already have an application with the DEA. And hopefully they will approve it. And if they approve it, we are home.
Counselor Winter.
Okay, so it's my understanding that you don't even need that excise issue on your ballot. City council can make that excise tax zero, correct? So
Absolutely.
then you would just need a ballot initiative for the 4.5%,
Well, I
correct?
want the 4.5%.
Okay.
Because
So I think we need to have
I'm
that
saying
discussion
it
a little
is-
bit more
I still
about
hate
the
4.5%
excise tax.
Because that will come directly to the city.
Right. I think it would be an easier ballot initiative without the excise tax being on there as well. So
Well, if you don't want.
we
it,
just need to have a discussion on
you
council
reduce the
about that.
excise tax to zero, I will withdraw the ballots.
Okay.
I'm not the enemy.
Oh, I mean, I totally agree.
I want the city to
I
flourish.
totally agree. I would vote to have that excise tax removed. And I think it would be easier for you on the ballot initiative to have the 4.5. But we have to, council has to have
The thing is,
a discussion.
And I'm not disagreeing with you. Thank you if you can manage that. But there is a tendency in Pueblo, get something now and not look for the future. Look around you. How many buildings are privately constructed building? Now some activities going on. But even those activities, remodeling the existing buildings, go through the city and you will not find one building which is being built in the last 5 years. I'm sorry to say, I have a stake in this city more than anybody else. I built a $52 million house here. And, but I will fight to my last breath to protect the city and for this city to prosper. But there is a pathway which the powers to be in the city has taken, which says, we want now. We don't want to invest in the future. And that mentality is killing us.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Dr. Hassan. And I think we share a vision too of protecting the city up here. So we share your vision to protect the city.
And I regarded Nick as a friend by a few friends like this, and I don't need any enemies.
All right. Well, thanks, Dr. Hassan.
Thank
Thank you for that presentation. Moving on. Do we need a break or are we okay to move on with everyone? We're good. Staff, do we need a break? Or are we okay to move on? Okay, moving on to our next agenda item. Is Broadway state legislation opt-out by Mr. Jagger
Go.
and Miss Pines?
Will not be singing.
Pins. Wait, let me clarify. And Miss Pins.
Lori is going to sing though, so go ahead, Lori. I'm kidding.
So really, like, whenever you're ready.
All right. Hello. Good evening. We're here tonight, Bob and I, to discuss opting out of broadband legislation, Senate Bill 152. Senate Bill 152 is a state legislation that keeps local governments from being able to do private-public partnerships and things like that to expand broadband services in our community. Daryl, do you want to bring up that? So as you're aware, what is broadband? Broadband is a high-speed internet connection. It's usually ran across fiber optic cable, wireless access points, or microwave connections.
So one of the biggest impediments to local government enhancing broadband infrastructure is a law passed in 2005, which has since been commonly referred to as Senate Bill 152. And Senate Bill 152 prohibits most uses of municipal money for infrastructure to improve local broadband services without first going to a vote of the people, an SB 152 opt-out election. Senate Bill 152 specifically requires that an election be held before a local government may engage or offer to engage in providing various telecommunication services. Now, the term providing is given an expansive definition in the statute, and it restricts both the direct and the indirect provision of services. Indirect is also given a very broadly restrictive definition and will preclude use of authorities, the use of partnerships or joint ventures, and through the use of a sell or lease back arrangement. So you're severely restricted in doing anything with respect to telecommunications without an opt-out election. Fortunately, though, a successful SB 152 election, a local community can clear away this legal impediment to a wide variety of local broadband initiatives. Next slide, Daryl.
You want the other one?
Oh.
Or back one?
I'll go back one. You got ahead of me. So opting out, what it does and what it doesn't do. An affirmative vote to exempt the city from SB 152 does not require the city to enter into the telecommunications businesses, but does restore local authority and flexibility taken away by SB 152. So it is important to point out that the vast majority of local governments who have passed an SB 152 opt-out question are not interested in hooking up homes and businesses and actually providing broadband services themselves. By and large, these jurisdictions are working to enhance local broadband infrastructure in order to attract either private sector service providers who would otherwise be unwilling or unable to serve the communities. The local broadband initiatives in the jurisdiction passing SB 152 questions to date usually involve some form of public-private partnership between local governments, economic development agencies, and the industry.
So some of the benefits for opting out of Senate Bill 152 is it kind of entices some of our current providers, the Comcast, the Lumen, CenturyLinks, to do something with their infrastructure, upgrade it, and bring the higher speeds to the homes and even to the businesses and help drive the local economy. It attracts new service providers to bring that in and improve the competition within the community, thus giving us some ability to expand. As Bob stated, it allows for public-private partnerships to leverage funding or services between the city, economic development, and the telecommunications industry. It provides us with the authority to try to make those projects and leverage some funding to be able to improve our services and make those available and using our public funds to help bring some of those projects to our community. It increases the opportunity for grant funding. It allows us to kind of bring that in and kind of attract that from the federal government and expand our services. But what we focus on here is the middle mile. So we're providing that connectivity not to the home, but the part in between where the providers will pick it up and then take it to the home or take it to the business. So we're encouraging growth and expandability in that middle mile. It provides better access and quality for the life of our citizens. As COVID has shown us, education and working from home is a big deal. And we have to be able to move that way and continue in the future to be able to provide that and increase our educational opportunities and that type of stuff to attract the businesses and bring in those high-tech green jobs and those type of things that'll keep our community growing. And opting out of the Senate bill will let us become known as a gigabit city. That's kind of been a term that has been used for a very long time, but the city's here. We can do that. We're attracting it. They're coming. So this will help us continue to do that and leverage the opportunity as it presents itself here.
The next slide.
It jumped to, there you go.
Good. So that's kind of a graphical illustration from CML of all the municipalities that have opted out since 2005. And we might want to glean from that. We may be behind the times as far as the opting out. Just by way of example only, the following cities have had elections and opted out of SB 152. Denver, Inglewood, Lakewood, Canyon City, Florence, Fountain, Aurora, Colorado Springs, Arvada, Golden, Durango, Fort Collins, Boulder, Centennial, and Longmont.
One of the things in Pueblo I'd like to just kind of point out is as some of the companies have come and talked to the mayor about expanding into this area, Pueblo holds a unique opportunity to Southeast Colorado. So it's a good possibility. We could become a hub of expanding those services through Southeastern Colorado, bringing us some other opportunities that we may not be aware of or that we can maybe envision as we move forward.
You get recommendation.
I get to do it? Okay.
I do timeline.
Oh, okay. So our recommendation is we would really like you to consider and approve a November 2022 ballot issue opting out of Senate bill and work toward taking back the control that we have for providing broadband service for our community.
And so the timeline would be that city council would have to pass and approve an ordinance, preferably on August 8th, but no later than August 22nd, to place that opt-out provision on the ballot.
And some of the resources that are up here that you could take a look at really goes through a nice kit on how we go about doing that, and a lot of the white papers and the case studies that show how it can really help a community move forward.
Thanks, Lori. Thanks, Bob. What questions are there from council? Councilor Flores.
As I understand, the university has been working on obtaining a grant to try to get broadband in some of the areas in Pueblo that have been neglected. And we know that the people that provide this, like Comcast, if they can't make money in a neighborhood, they're not going to go into it. And we've got pockets of neighborhoods around Pueblo that's not. So they're working on obtaining a grant. We just hired a consultant here a couple of weeks ago to look at all of these opportunities that are out there, a lot of federal money, and they're going to be working on this for us. Are you saying that if we don't opt out, that we could potentially be those types of opportunities are unavailable to us right now?
I'm not familiar with the grant, so I'd have to review them. I wouldn't want to say anything about that, but what we are prohibited from doing is providing cable television, telecommunication services, or advanced services. And that's either directly or indirectly. So to the extent we're in competition with the telecommunication provider, I think that's your red flag as far as those grants are concerned.
or we can't form partnerships with them to provide services in certain areas and those kind of things. We can't, for instance, allow them to use any of our fiber as long as this exists there. So I think everybody is, most of the municipalities, I think, have considered this issue. You know what the pass rate is, Bob? Is it?
I do not. All I know is where they have been enacted and
It's got to be, it's high.
At some level, somebody looking at the grant and denying the grant on the basis that we did not opt out and that HB 152 affects their ability to give us any money right now. That would be.
I don't think it would affect, and I could be wrong, but I don't think it would affect our ability to receive the funding. So it would affect the ability for the city to receive the funding and enter into a private-public partnership to utilize that funding to expand the services. But if that funding was given to another agency or entity to manage and disperse that, then they could still enter into that kind of partnership, but it would not allow the city to be able to partner in that, except for maybe permitting and those kind of processes as that infrastructure is built out.
Any other questions or comments from council? I guess I'm curious. It's been about 17 years since Senate Bill 152 came to be. I guess I'm curious why now?
Well, this particular issue came up because we were having discussions with one of the providers. And as we got into those discussions, they said, well, have you opted out of Senate Bill 152? And we said, nope. And they said, well, we can't go much further until that happens. So that's why it's come up now.
And the opportunity hasn't been there until now, really, with COVID and Arpa and the work that the mayor has been doing. So I think it's important for us now that we do this. From a city services perspective, we're very fiber rich. So when it came to providing city services, we didn't have that need because we had the fiber, we had other partnerships in place. So all of our city facilities are connected via fiber. But when you take a look at that and you can expand it and control that opportunity as it comes in and bring it to your community, we can't expand it into the community without opting out of it. But for city services, we had it accomplished. So it's kind of more of an opportune timing thing than it is, that we just waited.
So it sounds like staff recommends having an ordinance to opt out. A ballot issue. Oh, for council to approve a ballot issue.
On that, and if council is inclined to support it, we'll have a ballot issue drafted and bring it to you for your consideration so we can get it on the ballot this year. And one more thing we'll ask the voters to consider in November.
So the question on the table is, can we move forward to have a ballot measure written up to opt out? Councilman Martinez Ortega.
yes.
Councilor Graham. Yes. I'm a yes. Councilor Maestri. Councilor Flores. Yes. Councilor Winter.
Okay.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is an ARPA impact report. So Ms. Solano, whenever you're ready.
Good.
Thank you, Madam Chair, City Council, and Mayor Gradisar. This is an update of a report out of Tranche 1 ARPA funds. And a lot of it is in some detail that you might want to look at and ask questions electronically or by phone, or ask our budget committee to review when we schedule our first meeting soon. But let me see if you pull up you also have this electronically. I emailed it to everyone. Today, I wasn't sure if Councilor Atencio was going to be able to attend my Zoom. I think it's Daryl. Well, since we all have a copy, let me just get started because we won't be looking at too many of the details here tonight. There we go. Just for some background, our ARPA award for the city was $36,407,100. We received the tranches 1 and 2 in the exact same amount through a deposit on May the 11th of $18,203,500.50, and the same deposit amount just on June 7th of 2022. And as a reminder, going forward, we have to obligate the funds by December the 31st of 2024 and have all funds expended by December the 31st of 2026. As a reminder, also, the funds with the law that was passed were to be used to replace lost or public sector revenue, which we know ours to be $10 million, to respond to the far-reaching public health and negative economic impacts of the pandemic. And we know for that to be also census tract driven in our city, to provide premium pay for essential workers. And we'll see later on the reporting period where we have paid the essential workers, the fire and police in the city, and also to invest in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. Our Treasury reporting requirements are by end of each quarter, and in 2021, the March to December was moved all the way until at one reporting period on January the 31st of 2022. Our report was current as that date. The first quarter of 2022, January through March, our report has been filed and it was on time before April the 30th of 2022. And we're running up on the end of the second quarter of 2022, which report will then be submitted before the end of July. And our last then, the third quarter of 2022 that we have listed here will be due on October the 31st. When we report to the State Treasury portal, our ARPA coordinator and our ARPA compliance auditor convert what we have passed by our 7 pillars into the following 6 areas. And they are public health, negative economic impact, public health, negative economic impact to the public sector, our premium pay, water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure, and in revenue replacement. So those 7 pillars are recalculated and removed to 6 different locations we make the report on. What we wanted to do is actually to show the community, city council, ourselves, the impact of the ARPA dollars through tranche one. However, we're going to be able to have to do this by reporting period. So what you see on the next 3 slides or 3 pages in your report there are the impact of ARPA dollars with respect to the first reporting period. So our dates are going to look different in about 4 more pages than they do in these first 3. This is through the reporting period of March the 31st, where our subrecipients have reported back to the city through our ARPA compliance officer, the impact of the dollars that you awarded to them. So for instance, on page 5 there were 49 individuals that received $50 per day for trash collection. That award was to the Pueblo Rescue Mission. And if you would follow through, if you wanted to track later, you would see that on page number 12, that the amount distributed to date out of the $71,406 award was $38,890.70, with a remaining distribution of $32,586.30. And that is a little bit of how you get into the tracking of the information. But the impact is pretty impressive by itself. And so in the library, moving on to the Pueblo Library District, there were 6,577 youths that earned $100 for reading, but also to be able to take home for families that needed assistance with pandemic recovery. Out of the award to Children's First, it was a $150,000 award. So far, as the end of March the 31st, they have established 3 new childcare providers, and they have referred 1,500 childcare to these providers. There is a remaining distribution amount of $93,750. And the next one is the nutrition for the award to Pueblo Cooperative Care. They have distributed 33,171 nutrition on wheels meals and distributed 2,873 Power Up Kids sacks. And on to the next impact, you see that the $250,000 that was awarded to Care and Share at the end of March, to date, they've purchased and distributed 1,334,299 pounds of food. And this, again, information is coming from their report back to our ARPA compliance auditor. 85 clients have been assisted by their eviction notices through the Colorado Legal Services. 23 individuals were placed in housing with the Posada Award. The Pueblo Soup Kitchen has prepared 25,544 breakfast meals and 21,303 lunch meals. The EPIC Award of 36,000, they've provided books to 65 schools and agencies. And as of the award for the Pueblo Child Advocacy Center, so far at the end of March, they had provided 5 head-to-toe medical exams had been conducted. And on the last slide with respect to impact, from the $360,000 awarded to Health Solutions, they have hired 3 of the new behavioral health positions that respond to calls with the Pueblo Police Department. The city gave vaccine incentives to 681 employees, and the premium pay for 331 police and fire employees totaled $1,068,827.49. And so there's a good picture of the impact of the ARPA awards that have been made. As we move forward on page number 8, the tranche 1 of funds were awarded to 47 different projects across 38 different organizations. So more than a couple of those projects were awarded to more than one organization. On the next slide, we have the breakdown of the 47 projects, 15 to the youth pillar, 9 to the individuals and households. And so it goes down the graph to account for all 47 of the projects. And on the next slide, there is an accounting of the ARPA funds to date. Now switch the dates now. Now we fix the dates to 6/1 of 2022. So this would be in line with more of the distribution of the awards made rather than of the reporting back to our accounting department. $8,099,456.90 have been awarded, and they are presented there in order from high to low to the pillar of our ARPA in the city. Individuals and households received $2,381,436.89. That is the total, and then it goes down in descending order of award to the tourism and hospitality of $38,000. And if you recall, that $38,000 went to the convention center for their assistance. I think it was for some technology equipment. On the next slide, my printout has lost its white ink. So I hope you probably have a copy without the words, but your electronic copy, the white ink is shown there for you. And this is just a distribution or disbursement summary of all of the rounds 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the revenue replacement as of June the 1st. And there are listed for you by round with a total amount of the award, the amount of distribution to date, the percentage of each, and the award remaining. The percentage of each distribution results directly from the subrecipient agreement, where some of those awards were awarded all up front in order to manage the project they requested, and some of them were reimbursements where they had to incur the cost and then request reimbursement. So they are individually required to meet their own subrecipient agreements. And so you have the varying percentage. The total is there for the community projects, and then added to it the revenue replacements that have been approved for governmental services to balance the spreadsheet out, the revenue replacement that is yet to be awarded or approved for governmental services to equal the $10 million. And coming down the column, it does equal the $18,099,456.90. And then you can see going across the bottom, there is a reconciliation of the total amount that has been distributed to date, which is really just 25% to equal the amount remaining. The biggest amount to still be distributed there is likely to be the governmental services amount. And then the detail that I will not go into, just to show you here, the nice audit trail for us and for auditors. Each one of the awards to the very left column is listed by the resolution and or the ordinance that was passed by City Council awarding the ARPA distribution. Then it is so by entity, the amount awarded, the distribution as of 6/1, the percentage of the distribution, and the remaining award yet to follow. I think this is going to be a nice basis for going into the future as it starts off with that March 31st, first quarter of 2022. And as you go into the second one, this is all around 2. Same way, we'll let you into each one of those ordinances or resolutions, round 3 and round 4. Round 4 was a big one. You started that and went into the other next year. So you go into 2 pages to total into round 4. The next slide is a listing to date of the revenue replacement governmental services awards that City Council approved and are in the process by department directors of either an RFP. It's been out for a bid to come back, and we're reviewing bids. There's only been 2 or 3. Lori was, I think, the first to spend, and she's gone. The storage expansion she already purchased, and it isn't complete. I think you approved, and we've signed a contract for the Resource X. And of course, just in time for the community trash removal, there was the resolution of $300,000, and you can see only one bill has come in to date, $1,255.22. But it does reconcile again down to what you have approved to date, what has been expended, what's remaining, and then the balance still to be brought forward to request council's approval for continuing in that governmental services area. Moving on to the next slide is the total and ultimate reconciliation of tranche number 1. That reconciles to $18,226,780.76. It's a good question to stop to ask, why more than the $18,203,500.50 that came in. So we separated it for you from funds awarded by City Council, the administrative costs for payroll, the early distribution for clothing for the homeless youth in the community, and projected payroll, as we were uncertain with respect to what would happen with tranche 2 funds. For a subtotal there of the $8,099,456.90 that you see earlier in the slide deck. The tranche remaining amounts was $104,000. And then to bring notice to the tranche 1 funds went into a savings account for the city in the Colorado Safe Funds, and it earned $23,280.26 in interest as of June 1st. So when you add the 2 together and add it to the $10 million of revenue replacement, we are I guess you would call it an accounting ticket down the columns and across the columns to equal the $18,226,780. And that takes us through tranche 1, where you see a small amount remaining, and into where do we go with tranche 2? And this is, I think, where we wanted to spend most of our few minutes, which we're past our time here so maybe something to think about. With respect to last week's internal meeting with the mayor and his review of the outstanding items, he is wanting to recommend to the city council already. The focus of Tranche 2 to date is a $2 million water line infrastructure along Northern Avenue that'll extend opportunities for some building all the way down Northern going west. $2 million it still says Pueblo West Jail. When they did this, it's Pueblo County Jail. Is it Pueblo West Jail? But $2 million will assist from the city's ARPA, the wastewater infrastructure that'll assist in building that jail. And then the 6 community projects that he is proposing to move forward next week. And very briefly, they are American GI Forum, a City of Pueblo Board of Waterworks for the Lowhead Dam. That's a $300,000 Habitat for Humanity will be here to ask for some resources that will assist them to build their first home and they can get the cycle rolling. The Joni Fair Hospice House is asking for some money to extend to an outdoor patio. The Pueblo Regional Building Department has coordinated with the Pueblo County already in securing premium pay for their 17 or 18 personnel. And the county said if the city pays half of it, we'll pay the other. The city's half is $23,450. And then, of course, the $75,000 for the Pueblo Symphony that Councilman Atencio has been encouraging us to pay. And SRDA, which will cover half of the cost of a new ADA van, is $83,791. So those individual reports will be forthcoming. So out of the 18 million, the mayor would like to bring forward 4.6 of it, with 4 of it being the biggest wastewater infrastructure amounts. So $687 in programs. And then a discussion of do we keep going with the community interests that have been projects that have been submitted? How does council feel about moving forward with the remaining balance? And it's something to think about. I don't know that you're looking for direction this evening. Just wanted to make everybody aware of, where we stood with Tranche 1 and the reconciliation and moving into Tranche 2.
Well, thanks, Ms. Solano. That a lot of information. So I super appreciate all of that. What questions are there from council? We're all just so.
Well, we just have to absorb it all.
I actually do have a couple of questions. For the unspent revenue replacement funds that total about $3.12 million, I know that a couple of months ago, all of the program directors put all of the staff directors put together a list for possible projects and things. I'm wondering if that list is going to be revisited, if they're going to submit new lists, because it's still $3.12 million to appropriate to specific projects. So I'm curious about what the plan for that is.
Revisit the lists that previously were submitted and look at them and try to pick them up. My recollection is, do we have $20 million worth of requests, or?
We had a long list of requests, and the mayor initially said, we better wait to see what happens with the second tranche of funds, because wanted to support the wastewater installation efforts with the Pueblo County Jail. So that's how it got stopped at the 3.1 million. The long list.
I'd like to maybe see that list again. I'm just curious about what the overall.
Would you like to see the list?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can email it to you in full. Even the directors will go back and reprioritize, what they would like for reconsideration. And I'm sure there's some, as time has gone by, they'd like to reorganize their priorities as well.
Councilor Maestri.
When wastewater was in here, they talked in excess of $30 million. And we need some of that, not for developers, what the developers are doing, but for what the developers need to tie into that is our responsibility as a city. So I think we should look at more of that.
We can certainly resurrect the report from Andrea as well. There are, I think, working with Scott and Andrew and Jeff in some of the new development subdivision areas that you're going to hear about next for the new staff that's necessary. There will be some, I think, widening of some infrastructure that is potentially could attach for that reason. That's probably part of the Northern Avenue expansion as well. So I can pull all that back out, and there are a lot of lines and numbers. I'll send as much as we can electronically before discussion.
And then for the 25 collaborative projects, those were the projects that were recommended by the pillars last time, and they're just now coming back for tranche 2.
Not sure 25, where are you?
It says 6 community projects and 25 collaborative projects on the very last slide. Pending community projects from tranche 1. Those 25 collaborative projects are from the original pillars.
Yes, and yet to be reviewed.
Okay. And are there still, are the pillars still accepting proposals?
No, the pillars haven't accepted them. The city accepted the pillars, and then our ARPA coordinator got the pillars groups together, the task force, and reviewed. And we have not accepted an ARPA request since last October the 1st.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Ms. Solano, for that information and for following up on those couple of questions. Our next agenda item then is regarding the construction firm contract for project, the 3 fire stations. So can I have Chief Huber and Mr. Hayes to the podium?
Good evening. We have a little bit of a presentation here, just a few slides, but primarily we wanted to be here to answer some questions for you as we've held a previous work session on the topic, and just make sure we address the concerns if there was things that we did not address the first time. So again, talking here about fire stations 6, 8, and 11 and kind of the process of where we are, where we're going. There are several items on the agenda last week and coming up next week that are related to the project. So we want to make sure we are clear on what we're doing. Ultimately, the justification for the project real quick. We've got several fire stations obviously in their current locations here, but one of the issues that we have is related to response time. On this particular slide, you can see that we've got potential relocations of Station 6 out on 4th Street. It'll be moving a little bit further to the east. 11 will be on 24th Street. That'll be a new station. And 8 that's currently on Belmont will be up on Jerry Murphy on the north end. Chief, you can speak to some of this specifically, but on this slide, it's a little bit light on the slide here, but in here in these blue circles, you can see there's quite a bit of white space. That white space that's inside those circles are areas that we don't currently meet our 4-minute response time. So the construction of these new stations will result in improvements there for 6, 8, and 11. You can see that there's quite a bit less white space. I'll flip back and forth one more time. It's a little bit darker there in the tan or yellow color there. So you can see the response times improve drastically in those key areas. Again, on the east side, west side, and up at the north end there, up near Jerry Murphy as well. So why is this project important? Several things. These are just a few key reasons, but the emergency response time piece that we just went over is a key one. We've talked a little bit about net zero design in some of our previous work sessions and meetings as well. And this is something that's going to be applied to the design for the new fire stations. So facility operational cost savings is legitimate here. The energy bills per square foot will be much, much lower than the current facilities we're currently operating. In addition, there's health and safety of firefighters related to protection of the firefighters as they are in their living spaces, not being in positions where they're bringing in carcinogens or exhaust from the vehicle bay. So there's functional requirements here that are going to protect our firefighters over the long term of living in these facilities. Apparatus service life is also an important aspect here. Obviously, we are properly able to house and store and maintain our equipment. The service life of our equipment will be extended. It's also going to be much safer, I think. She'll vouch for this one, but watching a fire truck back up on 4th Street. That's pretty amazing. Having facilities, again, that are designed to meet their needs is incredibly important. So, sorry, go ahead.
No, absolutely. We have two of those stations that they back into now, and one is in Belmont, and they block traffic to get in, and same thing on 4th Street, and it does create a hazard both for the firefighters to get out and back the apparatus while still close to the street versus just having a drive-through station. So it's just one of the many safety concerns for the firefighters and for the community to not come up over the hill and come up on a apparatus backing.
Finally, the last piece on here that's just talking about quality of life, but this is an important aspect of the project that, remember, these firefighters are living in these facilities, right? This is occupied 24/7. So it's occupied 3 times as much as any other city facility we've got. So having the creature comforts that take care of them while they're in these spaces, plus the appropriate, bathing, showering facilities as well, just bringing these up to current standard is incredibly important. Also, when many of these stations were built, we had a pretty much all male firefighter force, right? And so having the right bathroom facilities is just one minor thing that seems like a small detail today, but it doesn't exist in the older stations. Okay. So ultimately, we've got some backup slides here, but I want to take some time, I guess, for you to be able to answer any questions that are you might have related to the project. I will say that one more point. We've got 3 different agenda items, I believe, coming up on the 27th. One of them is a resolution to award the design contract for the design work to a company called Allred. They are a design firm that has done fire stations all over the Front Range, up and down from Windsor all the way down here to Canyon City. So they're a very experienced firm in this particular regard. There's also a resolution to award a construction management and design management oversight contract to a company called Dunn & Kelly, who has also done this type of work on fire station projects, specifically up and down the Front Range. They have also worked with the firm in question. So this is an important piece here of understanding each other and how they operate and be able to operate our projects efficiently. Thirdly, there's an ordinance to budget and appropriate the remaining funds for the construction management design contract. So that's $270,000 for the total amount. The contract is about $225,000 of that. That leaves about $45,000 or so for contingency for the design project. So that will be the last of the funds that we should be requesting up until the point of construction. So this gets us through a design, also hires the construction manager and design manager as well. So as you're reading through the agenda coming up this week, like I said, there's several items in different spots on the agenda. If there are questions, I ask you to reach out and let us know. With that, I'll turn it over and let you ask any questions you might have.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Chief. What questions are there from council? Councilor Flores.
The fire station you're moving up north on Jerry Murphy, what happens to the fire station on Bonfort?
So we're still going to use that facility for both the DOTS programs and the focused response units. Plus, it allows us a place for spare apparatus. And that is a big challenge right now. We don't really have good locations for spare apparatus.
Thank you.
Councilor Martinez-Ortega.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Speaking about that specific fire station, is it going to be operational at all? Because will that affect the response time relocating it on Jerry Murphy from Bonfort for the folks that live off closer to the university? Will that affect the response time moving the fire station?
So it's going to balance out, but with that map and doing the GIS look, the whole purpose of moving them is so that the response times improve throughout the entire city, especially with all the annexations, to still provide a 4-minute response to all areas of the city.
Okay, great. I just personally, there was a fire at my brother's house, and it was that fire station that responded the quickest. So thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thanks, Chief. Thanks, Andrew, for that presentation. And we'll see 3 separate ordinances next Monday
I believe there's 2 resolutions and an ordinance on the upcoming agenda.
for final reading.
The ordinance, I believe, is final reading. That's correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And if I could just real quick, Saturday is Sound the Alarm event. So if anybody would like to meet at D60 around 8:30 in the morning, they definitely would love if a city council member would like to speak at all at 9 o'clock. But we'll be out in the North community putting in smoke alarms. Thank you.
Moving on to our last agenda item of the night is around the addition of 5 staff positions for support of community development. So Andrew, I don't know if you're speaking about this one or
I'm
the
gonna
mayor.
start.
Great, take it
I'm
away.
going to start it off, and then we have Andrew here for questions, and we have Jeff here for questions, and Barrett Odom is here. Just in light of our other earlier discussion, Scott Hobson has COVID. So if anybody's in contact with him in the last day or two, you should be aware of that. So Earl, if you pull that up.
Thanks for letting us know, and I hope he's doing well.
I talked to him today. He's working from home, seems to be doing very well. He's fully vaccinated, fully boosted. All right. Well, I apologize to those of you who think we might be repeating ourselves from what we presented a couple of weeks ago. But a couple of weeks ago, we had a presentation on the 5 new positions that we wanted to bring into the city. And we showed you why that was the case, the housing studies, the historic number of developments that have been planned in Pueblo since September of 2021 have exceeded the number that we've gotten in the last 10 years. So I'm not going to bore you with those details again this week, but we want to support small growth. That's the reason why we've asked for these 5 positions, that the developers have complex project review needs. The city has to be able to respond efficiently and in a timely fashion and with expertise when reviews of their plans are required. The existing city staff is already working on many projects that have priorities that can't be sidelined. And as you just heard, with respect to the construction that we're going to be doing for the city, the 3 additional fire stations, the $10 million in road improvements, all of that takes staff time away from reviewing these private developers' projects. So we want to try to be responsive and take advantage of this opportunity. If this meets with council's approval, we're going to direct Civil Service and HR to make the recruitment and selection of these individuals priorities so that we can get these positions filled as quickly as possible. So I'm going to call Andrew Hayes up as the Public Works Director. 3 of these new positions are going to be in his department. This department is very involved in reviewing projects that private developers have, as well as supervising, inspecting, and approving projects that the city is engaged in construction projects. So, and then you can ask Andrew questions with respect to that. Andrew, you want to go ahead?
Thank you, Mayor. So
Let me push that for you.
So within the Public Works Department, we're asking for 3 specific new positions. One of them is a Deputy Director of Public Works. That's a key role clearly in the leadership and administration of the department. Part of this is that there are about 24 hours in a day and there is 1 director. And having extra eyes and ears to lead and manage the department just provides extra bandwidth to manage the projects that the city's expecting and demanding. So this is a key role that we need to fill, aligning us kind of with other departments also that have 2 director or a director and assistant director kind of structure in the department. We have about approximately 80 personnel that are in the department. So the administration of the department is certainly something that needs to take priority. And that's one of the key roles that the deputy would take. One of the other FTEs there is a civil engineer transportation. So we have a couple of civil engineer roles. These are generally junior engineers or newly minted professional engineers that would typically fill these roles. This particular one will be in our transportation division and assist with subdivision application review, land use reviews, anything related to Entitled 12 subdivision or any public works related access and transportation kinds of equities. The third position is an associate engineer 1. This is a classification that exists already within the city. So this is a position that would be specifically dedicated to the administrative tasks associated with subdivision review within public works. So these are more general. They might look at transportation things, but they're also generally looking at compliance with code, compliance with subdivision procedures, and then facilitating the process as we do these reviews for developers when they come in. The last item that's on the list appears in FTE conversion. So this is referring specifically to a position that exists. We had a pavement management technician who recently retired. That pavement management technician managed projects related to roads, obviously primarily focused on pavement management. But the associate field engineer position is one that we're trying to create or turn this position into. So again, associate field engineer is another position that is already a classification that exists. We're just looking to convert this existing FTE into an associate field engineer. They'll be a little bit more versatile on a number of projects, whether horizontal or vertical. So roads, buildings, anything that we might have. So those are the FTEs that we're requesting in Public Works, and I'll turn it over for any questions you might have.
Let's go through it all. Good questions. Barrett, you want to come up? Next, we'll have Barrett Odom pinch hitting for Scott this evening, and she'll explain the new FTE for the land use technician that's being requested in the Planning and Zoning Department.
Thank you, Mayor. The Planning and Community Development Department is just asking for one new position, and that would be the land use technician. And we have one land use technician currently. We're asking for another. This position will set up case files, organize the application attachments for distribution to city departments and outside agencies, reviewing subdivisions, rezonings, and other development applications. They will also properly notice property owners, prepare legal notices of hearings, and work with 3 boards and commissions of the Planning and Community Development Department. So that would be the Zoning Board of Appeals, Planning and Zoning, and the Historic Preservation Commission. Currently, right now, planners are doing quite a bit of administrative functions. We put together the agenda language. We often distribute the agendas. We prepare the legal notices, write the minutes, which limits time for actual research and analysis of the cases that we're receiving. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Jeff Hawkins will talk about stormwater and the civil engineer drainage that we propose he bring on.
Good evening, council members. Yes, as the mayor explained to you, the surge in development that we have, and I just want to quickly tell you how this is impacting my department. Right now, we have, as Andrew Hayes very delicately described, we have a very onerous review process. We have a very tedious process in how we have to review our drainage reports. And I brought an example. I like visual aids right here to kind of show what a drainage report looks like. It's full of hydrologic and hydraulic calculations that engineers are required to submit to us to review. We have to check this against our drainage criteria manual. It is a long, tedious process, and we're often the bottleneck in the review process. Right now, I have one person on my staff who is responsible for these reviews, and it takes him a tremendous amount of time. He is also tasked with managing our capital improvement projects. So I'm asking, that's why I'm here tonight, I'm asking for another civil engineer drainage position to help us get on top of these reviews. We have a tremendous amount and a question, a tremendous amount of information to go through and reviews to catch up on. And a question you might ask, even when the economy slows down, can we still use this person? Absolutely, we can. We can use this person to help us with some of our capital improvement projects, design and management in the future. That way we don't have to pay the expensive rates of a consultant to do these jobs. And we've also looked at the budget, and we do have a good budget in place to support this position if approved. And that's all I have. I'll gladly answer any questions you have. Thank you.
So the annual cost, as we discussed a couple of weeks ago, all costs for the staffing requests annually is $571,044. Funding will come from the general fund and from the enterprise fund of stormwater, depending on what the assignment is. So we think we can make quick headway. These are the next steps in the recruitment, as these three of these positions are existing classifications. There are two new classifications. The job descriptions for those new classifications are in development. And as I said earlier, civil service and HR are on alert to make these vacancies a priority if approved. Eligibility lists are already being established for the current positions, and the current classifications. So that concludes our presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions. Just let us know who you'd like to answer.
Thank you for that. What questions are there from council? Councilor Winter.
Okay, so when you gave this presentation last time, you mentioned that we had record number of building permits from January through April, or that we had more than Pueblo West, January through April. You said that we had like more than Pueblo West. But Pueblo West was.
That exactly was in March of 2022. Twice as many new building permits in the city of Pueblo as in Pueblo West. In April, it was 3 times as many. That's what I said.
Well, Pueblo West had a moratorium on building permits, though, from January through April or April 13th. And they had a moratorium on building permits. You did, I could pull it up for you. Okay. And then, so anyway, I just thought it was kind of interesting that January 1st through April 13th, there were only, here in the city of Pueblo, there were only 3 new builds and 1 manufactured home out of 49. And the rest are all like elevator repairs, carports, garages, deck additions.
No, you don't have any idea what you're talking about.
Okay.
Okay.
That's why I'm asking a question.
Yeah, you don't have any idea what you're talking about if you say there were only 3 rebuilds.
Is this really appropriate to?
Yeah, it is. But you make statements like that you say we
It's
didn't
a
have any.
question. It's a question.
The question was what now?
You were talking about new development going on. So I was just saying that from January 1st through April 13th in the city of Pueblo, we only had 3 brand new building permits out of 49. And the rest were all like patio additions and garages. So I'm just asking
So I
if
don't
you
know where
have.
you got that information.
I got it from the regional building department.
You know, if you want to take a break, I'll go down and be happy to go get the reports that I get.
That's why I'm asking. Yeah, if you have reports on that,
Yeah.
Do you have something different that is that developers applied for building permits or?
Absolutely.
Good. Yeah. You can email that to me.
Or, I mean, Barrett
I'm happy to go get it.
Yeah. Yeah. If you
Right now,
want to go
we
get
can
it, go.
talk about
Yeah. Go get
Read
it.
off
Yeah.
the numbers.
I would love to see it.
Those are ludicrous numbers.
That's why I'm bringing it up.
just to rely on an expert in the room, Mayor Barrett is here. Can Barrett speak to that a little bit? Barrett is the principal planner for the Planning and Zoning Office.
Thank you.
I don't have the exact numbers of the new building permits that we've received between January 1st, 2022, correct, and April 2022. Is that
Out of the timeline, I just happened to pull that, and I thought it was interesting that out of 49, only 3 were new builds from the information I had. I just asked for that time period.
I don't have the specific number, but I do know that we have had probably up to 40 or more.
Okay.
I don't sign off
And that's
on
just
new
since
homes.
January or?
Correct. And we get a statement from regional every day. I'm not quite sure how they report through their website,
Okay.
but we could probably pull all of the numbers out of Tyler if you want to know, or not Tyler, now it's Place. Pueblo Place.
Okay.
Correct. We can pull those numbers and put them together and send them to you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All of council.
Yeah, I think that would be.
But it's certainly more than 4. Is that what?
Yeah, I
you were
just
looking
have
at?
what they sent me, and it was more than. I mean, it was just 4.
I know
There's
that
a
for the
new
Villa
resident,
Bella
new townhome, new
subdivision.
duplex, and a manufactured home.
Okay. For the Villa Bella subdivision, I believe we got 20 requests in one day. I mean, so it's quite a bit more than that.
So would that be like on one building permit then? amount of homes from that developer?
So we get a building permit request for each residential.
Okay, that's
home.
what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll pull those and send them out.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
That'd be a really good information to have. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Counselor Maestri, you turn your mic on.
Oh, yeah. I mean, no question is a stupid question, Mayor. I would really appreciate you just responding to any of our questions without this. I don't know why you're reacting the way you are. Just answer the questions, just like
I did answer the question. I did answer the question.
appropriately. And
Well, it's not the question you want to
I mean,
answer.
you're calling her out and calling her ludicrous, and you're calling her names basically.
I didn't call her names.
You said she was ludicrous.
I said it was ludicrous what she was saying, because the fact
I
that
would
there
just,
were.
we just need to all come together here and try to work together.
Well, that's
We're
pretty
all
hard to do when people come in here with what they say are facts. They make statements in meetings like,
She asked a question.
she didn't ask a question.
She asked a question.
What question did she ask?
It would just, I don't even want to argue with you because we don't need to argue.
all right.
That's what I'm asking, is just stop the arguing. Answer the question.
I'm not arguing with anybody. The facts are what they are. The facts are what they are. And we have had, was it 2 new building?
So, I
permits?
have a question. And Mr. Hayes, since we're adding new positions and so forth, the constituents are really kind of tired. We're always, talking about the condition of some of the city properties here and how they're lacking in maintenance. Is there something that we can do to add to the maintenance crews so that we can get this cleaned up? I mean, do some fire mitigation, do some trash cleanup. We're asking citizens of this city to keep their homes and their yards and their properties clean. And I think we need to do that. And I know that it's been a lack of, you said, labor to get it done, maybe equipment.
Sure.
I mean, we really need to, we need to do something here because we've got citizens out on the highway, which is not really our jurisdiction, but they're not trained to be out on the highway picking up trash. That could be a potential liability if something happens. I think we should get trained professional personnel to go in and clean up a lot of our messes around town.
Sure.
That would be really nice.
If I can, there's a few things we are doing already. So with respect to city-owned properties, when a complaint comes in, we do certainly go investigate and take a look to see what's going on at the particular site. If there's mowing required or other things, sometimes our streets division does go and take care of those items. Our code enforcement crew also does some assistance with some of those things. If it's in the right of way, then that's something that the streets division is specifically, tasked to take care of. It certainly pulls them away from road maintenance tasks if they're out there picking up trash or doing other things. But it's certainly something that we are trying to keep up with across the city. There are some areas of town that we pick up, and within a week they look like we've never been there. So there's a constant, effort in trying to keep those areas up to speed. But I'm sensitive to what you're saying, and I agree. So I want to be able to take care of those things for those folks when they call.
Rather than waiting for people to call, why wouldn't we take all the city properties and put a maintenance plan in place, which I know takes money because it takes someone to manage that and it takes the labor to clean it up.
There's some of that. So that is another piece that we're looking at. So we've already got a maintenance plan in place for right of way, for storm drainage, for parks. But there are city-owned parcels that come in and out of city ownership over time, right? And so keeping that maintenance plan up to date is a little bit challenging sometimes. So that's where we sometimes find calls on properties that maybe newly owned. There are also other opportunities for us to be able to take care of properties either in-house or by contract, as you're alluding to. So trying to make a decision about how we do that is to be determined. But right now, the resources have not been dedicated to contracting for that service yet.
So.
Well, we'd like to see it because we're the ones that get all the phone calls on it, and it would be nice. Our city needs it. We deserve it. You know, we debruced, so we've got, as the mayor always says, we have plenty of money, and it would be nice to allocate some of those funds towards cleaning up our city. Thank you.
Councilor Flores.
I wanted to follow up on some my street or statement equipment. I was thinking the other day of as a potential, and I know you'd probably need to hire a person to operate it, but it seems like I see a street cleaner once a year. You just happen to bump into that and you get surprised that we have one. The other thing is wood chippers with all of the debris that we see. It just seems like I understand that we rent these or we hire someone as to whether the city could buy their own wood chipper and have a location where that service is provided. And as I understand, there's a need for the debris later. They use it in landscaping, whatever. And then what happened, and this is not a question you need to answer now, but we went into partnership with the county on the cameras that were supposed to catch people throwing debris. I've never heard anything more about whether that was effective or whether it was a dud or whether the cameras are even still working. But could you check on that?
Sure. I can give you a little update. So on those, I know that the gentleman who was with me when we talked here about Household Hazardous Waste Program, Aaron Martinez from PDPHE. He is heavily involved. I don't know if he directs that particular program, but the cameras are still alive and well. They're moved around to different areas within the city and the county, trying to obviously capture folks in the act. It's difficult to prosecute those things without the evidence, and those cameras are providing that. But I don't know the number of cameras. I don't know how they're moved, but that's something we could find some more information on and get that to you.
Is there a sign that tells somebody there's a camera looking at you? I mean, it could have a deterrent without catching them.
I've specifically been asked actually by Representative in PDPHE to help them make the signs for that. So when they post the cameras or stage the cameras, that there's also some signage there that gives folks an alert that they're being watched. Yeah.
No, maybe we just need the sign.
Yeah.
Councilor Flores, would you just like an invitation to Mr. Martinez to come to give an update on?
I was just gonna say that.
Good idea.
It's actually they have a formal name. It's called the Trash Task Force. So we can invite them to a work session, and there's actually an FTE who does the program in addition to being supervised by Mr. Martinez. Yeah, we can get that scheduled. There is someone online, Daryl, who has their hand raised called the Fire Tablet. I'm not sure if they're staff or how you would like to. I know they were.
Scott Hobson. I apologize for not being there this evening.
Hi,
We track the daily new building permits in the planning department. And I think Barrett just handed a note to the mayor, but we have, to date, we have 140 new single family building permits issued. And it varied from month to month. In March, we had 40 building permits, new single family issued, but we can get an exact number. But that's kind of where we were at mid-June. And to compare that to last year, we had about 206 new single family building permits issued last year, and that was an increase from 140 the year before.
Yeah, Ms. Odom gave me a copy of the background paper that was in your packet for the June 13th meeting. And in that background paper, Scott wrote the background paper. It says that last year we had 206 permits were issued in 2021 for single family housing. And in 2022, between January and the end of April, 112 permits were already issued. And what Scott says with an anticipated total in excess of 300 for this year. So those are obviously very different numbers than what were mentioned earlier.
Thanks, Scott, for that update.
As of the end of today, it's 145 permits. So that's new homes, that's duplexes, that's townhomes, manufactured homes. That's January 1st all the way through the end of through current as of today.
New developments.
Those are all new construction specifically under, and there's obviously there are a number of ways you can filter that data in there. So don't get me wrong, it can be a little confusing to go in there, but this is just housing report and specifically new construction on your building's website there.
Mr. Hayes, I'm sorry to revisit this. Our cleanup, our attempted cleanup down at the Fountain River. They were out down there for 6 hours, and there's probably 40 or 50 camps that we've seen on that drone. And they took out 5 camps that day. So they took, and then they're gone. How do we, what do we need to do as a city to make sure that we go in there and get that all cleaned out? Because I'm sure those 5 camps are back. And make it even fair and equitable for when we're taking the camps down, that everybody down there, loses their opportunity to camp down there, not just 5. And it doesn't reflect well upon the city to just say, oh, okay, we're going to do these 5 today, and yet 35 get to stay in place. So if we're going to make an effort, we have to really make a full effort to go down there and clean that up. So is that lack of funds, lack of labor? And again, when I refer back to what I was asking about, maybe increasing that labor, increasing a plan to get this cleaned so that we can get it taken care of, because that does play into it's a lot of the city lots that the homeless people are living on.
You alluded to it. It's 50 some camps down there, and we removed 5 in the course of a day. It's an extreme challenge getting equipment and people back in there. It's also a safety hazard, so folks can't just hustle in there and get it done. There are needles and other hazards back there. So it is a challenge, and it's one of those things that takes some I would say concerted and persistent effort, as you alluded again, that you go in, you clean it out, and within days or hours, sometimes folks are back. Chief Noller will confirm for you too. It's certainly an area where there's a concern for crime. I know we responded to a fire there just this past week. So there are a number of concerns that are generated by the activities that go on there. But the cleanup is going to require a cross-department, I think, persistent effort in order to be able to alleviate the problem down there. So whether that's just resourcing, just people, it's
huge public health and safety concern. We need to give our city some relief. We need to give our citizens some relief of the threat of what goes on down there. And do we have, how are we facing EPA violations with the E. coli counts in the river? That could be like Fountain Creek, that's very costly to the city also, correct?
I can't speak specifically to,
or somebody's got to be paying the fines.
I can't speak to any fines or anything. I have not been provided any notifications of violations or anything like that. But certainly, it's at the very least, it's unsightly. At the worst, it's a health risk, fire risk, and other problems are going on there. So there are a number of things that we need to address back there.
I know that Councilor Martinez Ortega has a question.
It's more of a, I guess, comment. It sounds like we need these extra staff. So I'd like to see if we can direct the mayor's office to put the ordinances together or for these new positions or whatever is needed to move forward on this.
On for second reading Monday night.
That's correct. The positions that were presented are on for the ordinance for second reading is on
Monday night.
Monday.
Councilor Graham.
Mayor, are these positions going to have contracts with lengths of time? If we end up going into a recession or things start getting bad, I know that there's a lot of development right now, and we kind of have a backlog. But once we get through that, and if something happens, What
No,
we do.
they're going to be hired through civil service and they'll come through that process. So they'll be permanent full-time city employees. And if things turn around, we hit a depression or something like that, we'll have to lay off people like we would do in any other kind of recession or situation like that. So yeah, I don't anticipate that happening, but that's how those things are dealt with, how they've been dealt with in the past as people get laid off. Yeah.
Mayor, if I can too, I don't want to give the impression that, these positions are going to allow us to align our department to respond to these subdivision and development applications that are coming in. But there is no shortage of work in Public Works. There are a number of programs that we support, everything from blight fighting to street maintenance and everything else. So there are a number of programs that this effort and this labor can be put to. So we've been short for a long time, and this gets us closer to right. But nobody's going to be sitting there twiddling their thumbs. So thank you.
Other questions or comments for the good of the order? All right. Thanks, Andrew, for answering all those questions. It's 8:15 and I conclude this work session.